25 years ago, the Big Ten finally launched a postseason conference tournament. After years of rejecting the move for an assortment of reasons, ranging from academics to regular season integrity, the conference switched course and installed the Big Ten tournament to cap the 1997-98 season. The Chucker 19.9's resident historian explains the Big Ten's long road to creating a postseason tournament and the 450,000 reasons the conference and its member institutions eventually reconsidered and relented.
As others in the college basketball world, notably the ACC, SEC, and Big East, threw massive postseason bashes, assuring one battle-tested participant a full-fledged invitation to the big dance, the Big Ten resisted such party planning. Though Big Ten leaders began discussing a postseason conference tournament as early as the mid-1980s, university administrators and the league's basketball coaches deferred to the status quo year after year while other conferences took center stage. And not for nothing, there were fears that a postseason tournament would upset seeding and maybe even placement in the NCAA tournament, hamper academics, and perhaps most of all, diminish the conference's regular season. Big Ten champions, after all, were made during uncomfortable wintertime road trips to Bloomington, East Lansing, and Columbus, not over 4 days at a neutral site arena. By 1996, however, momentum was accelerating for a Big Ten tournament. Advocates saw it as a dynamic way to engage fans and alumni, prepare teams for the one-and-done realities of the NCAA tournament, and elevate the national profile of the conference, which, after long being considered the nation's premier basketball league, was losing some of its basketball shine. Since Michigan captured the national title in 1989, only 3 Big Ten teams had earned Final Four appearances in the subsequent 7 seasons. By contrast, Arkansas alone had hung 3 Final Four banners in that same time frame. Michigan State Athletic Director Merritt Norvell was one proponent of a Big Ten tournament. Norvell said, "It's an opportunity for us to highlight Big Ten basketball. Everybody else has had a chance to do that. We've been sitting around watching." Not to be overlooked, a postseason tournament also offered the Big Ten and its member schools a chance to make some considerable paper. The league office, in fact, estimated that each member school would receive upwards of $450,000 a year from tournament revenues. In an era of escalating cost, that capital infusion proved enticing. In December 1996, 9 of the 11 Big Ten presidents voted in favor of launching a postseason basketball tournament for the 1997-1998 season. Only Michigan and Indiana dissented. Not long after, the league office tabbed Chicago's United Center, the house that MJ built, as the inaugural tournament's host site. Chicago offered a centralized location, massive amounts of Big Ten alumni, tourist attractions, and let's not lie here, some cozy watering holes and fantastic grub.
Here we go, back in Chicago for the Big Ten tournament. They're celebrating St. Patty's Day on this afternoon. The Chicago River has been turned green, and just on the outskirts of downtown, Big Ten action, semifinals Saturday.
When Northwestern and Minnesota tipped off at 1 p.m. on Thursday, March 5th, 1998, Big Ten basketball entered a new era. Though things pretty much seemed the same as Northwestern dropped another close game, and Indiana coach Bobby Knight berated referees from the sidelines as the Hoosiers topped Ohio State in the opening day. 3 days later, before a national audience on CBS, 4th-seeded Michigan topped 3rd-seeded Purdue 76-67 behind a 24-point, 13-rebound performance from tournament MVP Robert Tractor Traylor.
Final score in this Big Ten championship game, sponsored by Kemper Funds, Michigan 76 and Purdue 67.
Big Ten Conference Commissioner Jim Delaney called the league's inaugural postseason tournament historic. "There's always a diminishment when you break with tradition," Delaney said, "but potentially there could be the start of another great tradition here." In the years since, the Big Ten tournament has delivered memorable moments, intensified rivalries, generated heaps of cash, and cemented its place on the Big Ten basketball calendar. It's traveled from Chicago, to Indianapolis, to D.C., to Madison Square Garden. It's ignited Final Four runs, provided buzzer-beating shots, heightened the Big Ten brand, and helped to solidify the conference's spot as a college basketball power broker. Eventually, the Big Ten made it to the party. Better late than never, right? For 19.9, I'm the Chucker.
The Big Ten basketball season has come down to its final weekend. And for the first time in 4 years, the great city of Chicago gets to play host.
Winning shot in the championship game. Record with 1 second. Gets it away. Oh, to the 3 in a row. Can you believe that? Luke Recker, the hero of
Welcome to the 19.9 short here. How are you, Chucker?
Oh, excited to be here, Aaron. How's it going, my man?
Good, man. So this one, particularly close to my heart, we're going to talk a little bit about the birth of the Big Ten tournament. And this is going to go up during the week of or the Big Ten tournament. So just an exciting time in college basketball in general. But start us off there, because how does a tournament come up? Because they weren't the first to go at this. And it just is a winding story to even get to where there is a Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, man, you're absolutely right. You know, we had the ACC had a tournament for a long time. The SEC had a tournament for a long time. And obviously the Big East had an awesome tournament there at Madison Square Garden. The Big Ten, though, was really one of the lone holdouts. Them and the Ivy League probably being the two most prominent. And they were really reluctant to have a postseason conference tournament with an automatic bid to the big dance. And so there were fears, you know, that this postseason tournament would just kind of more than anything really diminish the regular season. You know, there's this thought among the Big Ten coaches in particular that, you know, hey, I don't want my season to come down to, you know, potentially some neutral court game when I've gone to Columbus and won a road game, or I've gone to Michigan State and won a road game. And that's kind of, you know, I think the Big Ten being a Midwest league, I think there's this thought of like, well, that's where champions are really made, right? Like as you're traveling in the snow to Bloomington,
right?
It's not some neutral court game somewhere. And so that's a big part of it. And then obviously, you know, there was the idea that, well, it would pull student athletes out of class more. That's becoming less and less, I think, of a relevant point of discussion in the NIL world.
What a quaint thought.
Yeah. But, you know, in the mid-1990s, I think we were in a different place. And in fact, the Big Ten was discussing this as early as the 1980s, especially as they saw the other conferences have some real success with this. And then there was also a concern that if we had a Big Ten tournament, it would upset seeding. You know, if you had in the NCAA tournament. So if you had a team that went in and maybe it was a really, you know, maybe the second or third place team in the league and they lose in the first round, well, does that bump them down from the 2 line to a 4 line in the NCAA tournament? Or, you know, so there was some real concerns about it that I think really held up the Big Ten leadership and the Big Ten presidents from going to a postseason tournament.
Okay, so you've lined up some reasons why they wouldn't do it, but why did they then eventually get in there? You know, why start the tournament up?
Michigan electing not to put anyone on the ball defensively, which will allow Leidy to throw a more precise pass the length of the court. They're going to go right to Turner.
Turner at midcourt, inside it, at the buzzer, got it!
Are you kidding me, Dave O'Brien?
Yeah, so it all starts to turn in the mid-90s. And again, I think there's just kind of this momentum. All the other conferences are doing it. The Big Ten's on the outside looking in. And so I think there became this movement. Let's not lie. Like, I think money drove a lot of it. Like, well, this is a way to increase revenue for the conference. And, you know, I talk about in the piece that's going to go up on our stories page of the 19.9 website, that schools were getting $450,000 for the 1998 tournament that ended up happening. So that's, you know, considerable sum. Yeah. Of course, it's a lot higher these days. But then there was some kind of movement like, hey, this can prepare us for the one and done nature of the NCAA tournament. And I think the thing that, you know, money perhaps was the driving factor, but I think the real thing that really helped push this along too is the Big Ten in the 1990s had really lost some of its luster on the national scene. I mean, you have Michigan win the NCAA title in 89. You have Michigan and Indiana go to the Final Four in 92. You have Michigan go back to the Final Four in 93. But that's it. In terms of the Big Ten, when you come to 1996, the 1996 season, is that for 1996-1997 season, as that approaches, the Big Ten has kind of lost a little bit of its pedigree, and it's kind of lost some ground. And I think there was a sense of like, hey, we need to kind of generate some energy here and really show what Big Ten basketball is all about, because the conference wasn't doing it on the national stage. So I think money was one, and I think the Big Ten kind of losing some of its shine was probably number
maybe
two.
They become
really
a little stale, right? They're like, looking antiquated. We're not willing to do this postseason tournament like everyone else.
Yeah, and especially when you see the energy that's going up. I mean, when the Big East goes to Madison Square Garden, it overwhelms that. Like it takes over the Mecca. And I think the Big Ten was sitting there saying, we're watching all these other teams play. They're getting the stage. They're getting the national coverage. Where are we? And I think that really helped move some of the Big Ten leadership and the university leadership down this path of creating the tournament for the 1998 season.
It's weird that it took this long because, of course, the biggest moneymaker for the NCAA or college basketball in general is a tournament. So it's pretty clear that people like one and done style tournaments, not something that needed to be proven again, right?
Well, the stakes are there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's win or go home. And so there's automatically drama injected into any tournament environment like that. It's not a round robin. It's a one and done scenario. So I'm a fan of, are you a fan of tournaments?
Oh my gosh. I love it. I got an idea to pitch to you here in a minute, but I want to ask you first, where's the best site for the tournament? Cause it's moved around a little bit. What's, in your opinion, what would you pick if there was like only one place for the Big Ten tournament to be?
So obviously it started in Chicago. It's gone to Indianapolis. Those are really the two main locales it's been at. It has gone to Washington, D.C., and it has gone to Madison Square Garden. Madison Square Garden's great, but I really think that's Big East territory.
I think so too.
And I just, it's great to have it there, but, it feels out of place to have Minnesota and Ohio State and Michigan and Illinois playing in New York City. But obviously New York's got a lot of cachet. Madison Square Garden certainly does. I think being a Chicago guy, I think Chicago's a great place just from a geographic standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think Indianapolis is such a great host to so many of these events. There's a reason they have the Final Four regularly and big events, because it's a great city for it. It is pretty geographically centered for the Big Ten. And I just think, Indiana and basketball just go hand in hand. So I think Indianapolis is probably a great place for it to be.
You're speaking my language now. Okay. I'm going to pitch my idea at you here. Should it be a mid-season tournament? I've been tossing around this idea in my head about some of these like end of the year for college basketball tournaments. Why don't we have something around, I know you gotta watch out for college football, but is there a space somewhere in the middle of the year to have it? Because I think sometimes I wonder about these teams like running through the conference tournament and then like kind of almost being a little burned out as they go into the NCAA tournament. And it does mess with seedings a little bit. Like, why not have it in the middle of the year? You kind of have the fun of it, draw some extra attention to the kind of doldrums of the year, and then, circle back to the NCAA tournament.
You're going all Adam Silver on us as the NBA trying to get a midseason tournament.
I kind of like it. Let's beat into it.
I don't think it's happening. I do like the idea of generating energy when in a part of the season where there may not be as much energy. But I think you are going up against football. And I think unlike NBA where you have 82 games, you have such a long season from, really end of October until around early April. College basketball is a little bit more condensed. But I do think you could be onto something where all it takes is one conference to kind of step out of it and challenge the status quo, challenge the convention. And if it works for them, you're going to see other dominoes fall. Because that's what happened with these tournaments to begin with.
Yeah, I just think it would be interesting. Like if you get the automatic bid in the middle, let's say whoever it is, and you're not one of the top states. Let's say like Indiana would make a miracle run and get the bid in the middle of the season. What would that do to the conference for the rest of the year? Because now there's, what I mean? Like, it just seems like there'd be more talking points because there is a little bit at play where you're like, it doesn't, I don't know. I don't really pay attention. I watch the tournament. It's fun to watch, but I don't pay attention to how many teams have championships of the tournament.
Well, that's because you're an Indiana fan, and they've only made it to one final.
Oh my gosh! I know you broke my heart. You, man, you broke my heart with that.
Well, you're the one who just called Indiana making a miraculous run in a hypothetical.
I deserve it. I deserve it.
You did it yourself. But what's interesting too is in doing the research for this, I was stunned to see Indiana since 1998 has only made the Big Ten tournament final once. I was shocked, and I understand the Hoosiers have had some down seasons.
Yeah. But
I'm like, my God, how have you only stumbled into as many as Penn State?
Right.
That was shocking to me, you know.
Yeah. That's a whole. I don't
know how you feel about that.
That's a whole other thing. We're gonna leave that there.
Yeah, well, with the midseason tournament, again, I just think it takes one conference to maybe step out, challenge convention, think a little bit differently, and you'll see those dominoes fall. That's what we saw really with this postseason tournament. And I think the Big Ten probably looks back now and says, my God, we should have been doing this earlier. But the Big Ten is also filled with a lot of pretty traditional universities too, you know, and traditional land grant universities, and you know, Midwesterners by and large just kind of don't want to be the most forward thinking. Like we're happy with the way things are, and I think
that's fair. That
had a lot to do with it too. You know, I mean, we'll leave the real innovation and the, you know, maybe to the coast, and because sometimes innovation flames out too.
Yeah, no doubt. Thank you for listening today. If you like what you heard, leave us a rating or review, 5 stars only, like the basketball camp. You can also give us feedback at 199podcast at 199.com. Again, that's 199podcast at 199.com. Till next time.